Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with my really dear friend Simon, and we are going to do a talk on the fatherhood as an evolutionary journey today and just share different perspectives and experiences. And Simon is expecting father. I just had my second one about 3.5 months ago, and we'll share a little bit. I think it's going to be good for children, fathers, and mothers, and hopefully a lot of contemplation and insights. And we are keep learning ourselves all the time. So Simon, would love to hear a little bit from you.
Well, first, man, thanks for thanks for making time to jump in and talk about this. It's been a journey so far. Chanel, my partner, is almost 8 months pregnant, so we're coming down to the end of the wire. Anything could happen at this moment, and it's been a journey of a lifetime already, and we don't have the kid yet. So part of my exploration in the past months and during this whole pregnancy has been connecting and touching base with other men and other fathers to ask for advice and ask for mentorship and wisdom and hear their life experiences. And I've just noticed that the information that I'm receiving from most of the men I talk to is all over the place. Like there's not a common thread necessarily with all the men that I've asked and talked to. And that makes me think, like, one, we don't know what we're doing and we're just winging it. Two, we're not talking about it. We're not sharing about it and creating spaces like this to actually connect and learn and become better fathers because of it. So I'm really interested to hear your experience in terms of what it's like to be a father and what it was like for you transitioning into fatherhood. But also, I'd love to just dive into like this void. There's this void in our culture, at least in my culture, where we don't have a lot of support for fathers. Like I've realized we have a midwife and a doula, and it's still very focused on the mother, which makes total sense to me because she's carrying, she's doing all the work, she's carrying the baby. But other than reading books and preparing to support her, there's not a lot of resources out there, for me at least, that I've stumbled upon. So what was your experience like in the becoming a father process?
Yeah, it's something that I've also been struggling with in my own journey, not having so much communication around this subject, not having people that I could relate and open up to about it. And of course, a lot of feedback, like you said, all over the place. And I found that a lot of people had no clue. And then through the fatherhood, also in a way maybe suppressed a lot of themselves and just disconnected from the world. And to me also, it was a very challenging experience. Even leading up to the birth, I agree with you, it was very challenging because a lot came up for me. A lot of things from my own childhood and how I want to be a better parent to my children than my parents have been, and all those expectations from myself, and feeling like maybe I'm not ready for that. And maybe there's some things that I really need to. For many years, I've been trying to reconcile, and my journey, my healing journey, and working with both Buddhist psychology and Jungian psychology, the indigenous traditions, was focused around reconciling of the relationship with my own parents. And it was very healing in that regard. And then, of course, coming myself to become a parent, that was quite a shock to my system. Because it's one thing for me to work through my parents and then see, okay, great. In the indigenous traditions, the real parents are the Mother Earth and the Father Sun, the universal parents. We come through our parents, but not from our parents. And then there is this encouragement to see parents us human beings, our physical parents, us human beings first and foremost, and not to expect them to be perfect. And that was great, in terms of me being a child, that was great. But when it was my turn to become a parent, then, in a way, all hell broke loose. And
Yeah.
leading my wife was pregnant for the first time, and leading into that, and I just had so much that I was going through, and really trying to reconcile and see how I can prepare myself for that. And of course it's not possible to prepare. And yeah, I had some experiences that helped me, but I could not have imagined what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And even though people were telling me about that, people were saying to me that, yeah, you become a parent, that's it. Your
Yeah.
life is over.
The world is over. Life is over. Like, say goodbye to your friends. Say goodbye to your health and your body and your sports and your hobbies.
Right.
Right.
And absolutely. I could not have I thought maybe, okay, I have some experience with intense experiences, ceremonies in this kind of situations where my whole world breaks apart with meditation. And there's this term by Pema Chodron, this famous Tibetan Buddhist teacher, who says there is this dynamic of meditation is ruining my life, where it's not really that meditation is ruining my life, but just becoming aware of all the things that are not working in my life that I have been hiding from before. And as much as I thought that I was prepared for that, I was not. So then, when my child was born, it just became painfully obvious all the ways that I cling to my comfort zone, and how I want things to be a certain way, and how I have very ingrained habits of living my life in a way that I got used to,
Mm-hmm.
and not caring about what else and who else I have to consider in that regard. And of course, with a child, my life is no longer mine. So I have to give up everything that I have been developing, all of the coping mechanisms and all of the ways that I've gotten used to having my own space and my own time, and needing to give that all up. And then I did experience a lot of struggle because of not having that support structure, like you said, for men.
Yeah.
And
I want to touch on that because there's. Do you still feel like you're not able to get much time for yourself? Like, is that because I'm going into this being like, I can still do this. I could carve this out. Like, that's just, you know, unconscious behavior by other men that just give it all away. But um, so am I in for a rude awakening, thinking that I'm still going to be able to have time and space for myself?
I think that it may be different for everyone. And for me, there was definitely a rude awakening. And I also think that I kind of set myself up for it,
Mm,
because for years I've been really working on exposing my own elaborate self deception, and obviously having blind spots. And
yeah,
there are many layers to that. And so, because I've been working and preparing for that, then when it happened, then in a way I was asking for it.
true.
And that made it, I don't think that it made it easier, but it made the process more conscious for me, where I could not really be in denial about it
Mm,
and hide from myself in that regard. And so then people, I had a friend who some time ago he asked me, well, how's fatherhood going to be? Because he was also expecting a child. And I told him, well, honestly, all of the ayahuasca ceremonies that I've had and all of the intense experiences that I've had in my life, they were just a teaser in comparison. And
that's
my friend just hung up the phone on me at that point.
Yeah, I feel like doing the same right now.
And so I don't think that it's like that for everyone, but I did ask for it. So
Mm,
I have prepared myself to go into this journey in as honest way as possible so that I don't perpetuate my own conditioning onto my children.
mm,
And so I made that very serious intention before my child was born. And then, of course, I had to be humbled because I saw that, yeah, I cannot be a perfect parent. As much as I want to
mm-hmm.
be a perfect parent, I have to take that same indigenous wisdom to heart in my own experience as a parent to see that my child comes through me, he does not come from me. And there are those universal archetypal parents, the son, the father son,
Yeah.
in the individual, he shines impartially all the time. I cannot shine all the time. I
Mm,
go through my own breakdowns and my own dark places, and I have to take that into account. I am a
yeah,
human being.
totally. But do you think that that's like, I completely hear you on that. Do you think that that's like, I'll speak to my own experience. I feel like that was a big missing part in my relationship with my father. Um, I think I only saw him cry twice in,
Mhm.
in our lives, maybe three times now. But having him not expose what was really going on and lead by actually going through it and being able to be witnessed in it, he hid from it all, which made me believe that he was some sort of god and nothing happened to him. And then that intrinsically made me believe that I shouldn't have issues because my dad didn't, you
Mhm.
know, and then I'm always suppressing it when it comes up. So like, I feel like being able to go through and not shine all the time is showing your children and your sons like that's part of being human, and
Mhm.
it's okay.
Absolutely.
Accepting that is a struggle that a lot of us go through.
Mhm. Yeah, very much so. And that was a big part of my process to really reconcile that and to come to terms and open up and see that, yeah, this is an evolutionary journey. For the indigenous people, we are always children of the universe, no matter how old we are. There's a great advice that I got from one of our Tibetan teachers, Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, and somebody asked him, well, how are we supposed to raise our kids and how are we supposed to discipline them and how are we supposed to work with them and still go through our own process? And he said, the best thing you can do is understand that everything that you're doing with your child most likely is wrong. And you should do it anyway, but with that understanding. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we have certain ideas in our society how to raise children, how it's supposed to be, but then, yeah, it may not be the wisest approach.
Is that because thinking that we're doing it right limits us to other possibilities and openness to be able to like adapt?
Absolutely, because children, they are great teachers.
Yeah.
They really my children are pointing to me when I'm not being in complete integrity with myself, when I'm trying to pretend or act some kind of a role instead of be a real human.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they really need. Another teacher of ours, I found that also very meaningful. He shared the best way to engage with children is to really see them as friends. They come into your house, they come
Yeah.
into your household, you take care of them, you make sure, of course, when they're very small, the basic needs need to be taken care of. But then they are their own people. They have their own tendencies, their own talents, their own experiences, their own passions, and it's not something for us to impose on them, but to really work alongside with them and really make sure that, yeah, I can share what I find useful, I can encourage certain things, but I have to acknowledge that they are their own human beings. And that's so essential. So this teacher says, so yeah, they are guests in your house. Then don't the best thing you can do is make sure that you are a good host for them in a way that they will want to keep coming to visit in the future after they leave your household.
Yeah, they're not like beelining it as soon as they're able to. Good point.
So, yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
So that's something that I've been working on cultivating with my kids, and especially my son, my older son. He is now 3.5 years old, and definitely he is very much his own person.
Hmm.
He definitely has his own inclinations and how he likes things to be, especially at this age. And yeah, I can work with him. Of course, we do have to maintain boundaries, and we do have to keep him safe. And in certain ways, he's learned a lot how to keep himself safe and not fall down. And I
Yeah.
had to keep an eye on him for the first 2 years, every step of the way. And then gradually, yeah, he knows how to take care of himself on a physical level. And now it's working on emotional levels and other levels, and how to engage on the level of emotional intelligence and not scream no every 5 minutes, and actually communicate and encourage and see that emotions and crying is part of their ability to process energy.
Hmm.
And it's very essential, and it's not about just shutting them up. And that was also a big part of my healing process.
Wow.
When my older son, when he was just born, and he was a very demanding child. Also, I've been learning that it's not always like that. With my second child, I was terrified. When my wife was pregnant, I was like, if he's going to be like the same way as the first one, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. But the second one, he turned out to be actually very calm and very quiet. And I hear that also is often the case, that
Hmm.
the second child is much more harmonious. The first child was a lot more attention demanding and screaming a lot, and he would propel me into my own breakdowns. And that's another thing that is on the side of the women. They have all of those oxytocin and all of those hormonal changes that make them more intuitive and receptive and patient, and being able to embrace the child. But for me, at first, I realized how much it did not happen in my own life, where I was screaming or misbehaving, and I was punished for that,
Yeah.
instead of being allowed to work through the energies, to harness and channel those emotional energies. And then seeing how I may have this screaming child inside of me that I've never fully embraced,
Mm.
and then have been hiding in all kinds of coping mechanisms, just not wanting to deal and not knowing how to deal with that.
Yeah. Wow, man. That's an amazing like awareness to bring it back to. And it's something I was thinking of when you were sharing that, because I mean, currently that's what's coming up for me also, is this like uh, awareness of where I can't hide anymore. Like the demand on on me and the responsibilities that are being called or calling me forward now are like not allowing me the space to play it small or to hide, even though I'm still trying to. Do you know what I mean? Like, luckily, my partner, and I'm sure yours is as well, helps the pointing out process and like, and helps you see your blind spots. But man, I'm just seeing as the due date arrives, closer each day and each week, how much more I'm like not going to be able to hide. Like, and I can relate to you with in terms of like being punished for acting out and being bad and not really being held or allowed to like process the emotional behavior, the emotional hurt that was going on in the moment. And I can see that playing out already, where I'm already like, where is my attention going to come from? Like, who's going to focus on me when I'm outputting so much? And then I feel guilty for even thinking that, because I like this beautiful woman is like carrying a baby and is about to go through labor, and then there's going to be this little baby that we need to take care of. Like, I shouldn't even be considering where I stand in all this. So that's something I wanted to bring to you, because I think a lot of men go into this being like, I don't have a place in this anymore. And we give our leadership away to just serve. And I'm curious, like, how that went for you, because for me, that is really important to me. And please, like, verbally slap me if I'm way off here. But I really want to, like, step into this and lead my family in a way where I'm bringing energy, but also leading by taking care of myself and bringing new energy into the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's a big part of it. And then the leadership, I find, is the leadership of that willingness to go through the challenges,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not avoiding or denying and running away, and then acknowledging each of our limitations and also each of our roles, and then how we can communicate with each other. So my wife, she has been an amazing leader in this process, just by tuning into her own intuitive wisdom. And of course, she's been having her own challenges, and I've been trying to be as supportive as possible. But she has been just an amazing role model for me of this consistent, selfless dedication. I mean, she, from the moment the child was born, just holding the child all the time and sleeping with the child on her and being with the child sometimes 24/7. And to me,
Wow.
that's inconceivable to do that and so she has given herself so completely to the child. And then I was inspired by that to do whatever I can to support her, because for the first 2 years, the mother is everything to the child.
Mm-hmm.
She is the whole world, the whole universe to the child. And whatever the child needs, he screams for mama. And the papa is not really, kind of being played. There's not so much attention on the papa. And then the papa, the main leadership I could engage with is to be of support, is to provide the necessary conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Our midwife in Peru, she's a native Peruvian, and she studied with a lot of the indigenous people. And then she would prepare us for the birth. And then she would say, okay, she said, what does the rooster do when the chicken is laying eggs? The rooster is going around the chicken and is making sure the chicken is protected.
Yeah.
And he's holding that space. And both of our births were at home. And
Wow.
the second one I delivered myself without a midwife recently.
No way.
And because the midwife was late, she didn't come in time. And I called her and I said, listen, I said, the head is crowning. And I don't know, are you coming or what? And then she said, okay, Roman, she said, are you ready to catch the baby? Go catch the baby. Go catch the baby. And she just hung up on me.
Whoa.
Luckily, I've had an experience the first time where the midwife helped me catch the baby. And then the second time I was able to do it all by myself um, and and engage. But the first time my wife was going through it and was screaming and moaning through the labor. And yeah, I was willing to do anything to just hold space and make sure that she's prepared. And I did not know. So she told me, okay, maybe I'm going to birth in a tub. So then I went and we had this inflatable tub, and I spent an hour trying to inflate it and fill it with water with this rusty tubing. And then finally she said she doesn't want to do it. But that hour of trying to deal with that tub was very healing for me. It was,
Yeah. I
very,
can imagine.
it was very therapeutic because I felt like that was something that I could really support.
Yeah, you had a job.
Right. And so I find that that has been a key for me, is to really engage in the best way possible and to see that, okay, the mother, she is everything to the baby, but I can support the mother in whatever way I can. And then make sure that she has all the things needed and I can go and get the supplies and the food and make sure that the house is stocked and that she has her space and maybe give her a massage session. But to really be in the role of leadership as a steward, as a support. And I find that that has really helped me, because
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah, I want to also have some recognition or attention, but then seeing the level of her selfless dedication, and then that's been very humbling for me. So then in that way I could really step into my own power to truly be of support and acknowledge ways that I cannot. And everything in nature has that sequence. And then now my older one, he's 3 years old, and now we are spending a lot of time together, and we go on 3-hour bike rides together and do a lot of things. And so now he is gradually transitioning from his attention on the mother to his attention on the father, and we are buddies and we are wrestling together and all of those things. And so it's all part of nature's design, I feel.
It's beautiful, man. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I can't believe you caught your second child.
It was an amazing, it was just a miracle. It was an experience that, the most miraculous experience of my life. Just catching him in my arms and him coming out, and yeah, I felt the spirit just wash over me, and I've never experienced that degree of bliss in my life.
Wow. Somewhat overwhelming. So what you're saying, and I'm fixating on this, but what you're saying around like creating time for yourself or making sure that you still maintain your sense of self through this, what I'm hearing from you is really getting out of the way that so you can support your partner and the baby, especially early on, is how you find yourself.
Definitely. Yeah, the Lama has the saying, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service to others. And I find in my own experience, yeah, of course, even though I wanted to transform all of those habitual patterns in my life, they're still coming up. A lot of them are ingrained, and then struggling with that and having this rigidity. No, I want my own space. I need my own time right now. I need to go in seclusion, and not being able to. And then gradually, and seeing that, yeah, this is that breakdown I've been asking for. I've been asking for my personality shell to be decomposed, to be composted. And it doesn't make it easier, but at least knowing that that is what is happening, and then being with that struggle and allowing myself to be with that struggle, and cultivating whatever supportive mechanisms I have developed over time in meditation, breath work, qigong. I know that you love to do the cold dives in the ocean. I think that that's awesome. Because yeah, it also helped me to go into a cold shower once in a while when I would get really emotional, and I would need to get over myself. I would get really flared up. Oh, what about me? And I'm important, and all of those things. And actually, it was just this kind of self-absorption that was on its way out.
Yeah.
And the less I would play into it, the more I was able to work through it.
I feel that as you're sharing that, I'm starting to think about there's this neediness within me that wants this space for myself so that I can still have the two opposing sides. So there's like me over here, but I don't want to, I don't know if I can be this guy always and in this place. So I want to keep these little rooms for him to perform in. When it's like, if I can be my full authentic self with my children and my family, like that's going to be the most um, like fulfilling experience I could ask for. Then I don't need like, you know, specific space to enact those patterns or those expressions because I'm authentically myself always. I mean, of course, that's going to lead to like, you know, different habits and patterns and conditioning to come up. But I think for me, anyways, I see that line where part of me still wants to hide and make sure that part of me is protected. That's why I'm so attached to, you know, how do I do this without losing myself? It's like what I'm hearing is become yourself always and allow that to be seen.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's not something that can be forced, it's a journey. And there's a lot of evolution and maturation that is taking place. And I agree, it's this sense of separation. Like, okay, there is this me that is separate, and this is me that needs his space so that I can function somewhere else. And then there is all of this separation that is taking place.
Mm-hmm.
And I've definitely experienced that. And then gradually dissolving those boundaries and including my family in my experience.
Yeah.
And that is my life. That
Yeah.
is my space. And instead of me needing to run away into a corner somewhere, I can actually embrace what is happening and not have this kind of wall between me and the world around me.
Mm. Man, that is huge because when we started this conversation before we jumped on, we were talking about like, you know, this experience where I've asked all these different men in my life, you know, their advice on pregnancy and their advice on birth and becoming a father. And so much of it was like, your life is over. Like, you don't even know, have your fun now while you still can. And, um, uh, there seems to be like a more collective story around this where we're wishing or wanting to hold on to this separateness. What do you think that is? Because that's huge. I've joined even like a bunch of Facebook dad groups and trying to like dig in and see what men are going through, and a lot of this seems to be the case.
Yeah, and it's true in a sense where the life of that personality that has been developed over time, this personality that is me, is geared to me as this kind of character who I've gotten used to being, where life is all about me and it's revolving, even when I'm in a relationship. But still, there is this kind of like there's me, there is my wife, and we all have our own things and we have our own likes and dislikes and our own interests, and suddenly that has to be sacrificed. And this conditioned ego doesn't go without kicking and screaming. And so I found this capricious childhood. What about me? Me. And then breaking down and not being able to hold on to that.
Mm.
And then actually, okay, well, I can continue to hold on to this me, or I can actually willingly go through that process and see that, yeah, it's not easy. And a lot of those habitual patterns are breaking down, and a lot of the ways that I've gotten used to living my life and having my relative sense of comfort and peace and things like that, it's no longer available. And then there is this raw essence underneath that. And this raw essence is something that is not unfamiliar territory, which is great if you look at the process of evolution and transformation. If you look at this kind of frog that likes its abandoned well, there's this Taoist story, you might have heard about it, where there's this frog that has lived all its life in this abandoned well. And this frog, he gotten to know every nook and cranny of that well. And he got really good at jumping and somersaulting and doing all kinds of tricks inside of that abandoned well. But at a certain point, it was a very miserable kind of existence, very boring. There's nothing else but that. And one day the frog was sitting on the edge of that well, and he saw a turtle from the deep blue sea passing by. And the turtle invited him to go and join her in the deep blue sea. And the frog asked, well, do you know everything about the deep blue sea? And the turtle said, no, it's vast and mysterious. And in that particular story, the frog got scared and jumped back into the well. But the story represents this kind of monkey mind, where everything is figured out. I know how things should be and how things are, and how I like the things and what I like and I'm miserable in that. But the sense of comfort kind of overrides the misery. At least I'm comfortable. And the mystery, this kind of breaking out of all of those habitual patterns and this monkey mind and awakening the heart, is not comfortable, but there's so much freedom in that, so much spaciousness. And so I find that it's this process of coming out of the monkey mind and opening the heart and breaking down all of those shells, all of those armors and defense mechanisms that the personality has built.
Yeah. That's the friction I'm feeling these days.
That's the what?
That's that friction that I'm feeling these days, and I appreciate your perspective on it, because there's this fear of breaking through this because I don't know what to expect, because I've never been there before. But then there's this deep desire to go there because I'm so curious about it and so feel so ready. But there's this attachment to what I do know and what has been working. But there's no way I can possibly hold on to that through this transition. So it's an experience that nobody could have told me about that would have fully prepared me, obviously. And I'm still not there yet. I just, I love your perspective in terms of just being willing to experience life in the moment and constantly showing up for service and with curiosity. I think curiosity is something that, especially in my journey in terms of becoming a father, is really kicked in the last month to 2 months, where I can see the, baby on the horizon. It's real. It's like definitely real. We're nesting and I have hormones. I feel like hormone shifts in my own body, and just so curious about how I'm going to show up through this and how, and like what I'm capable of through this experience. That's what's motivating me to bring more wonder into our relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that it's this leadership that you talk about, and it's the leadership of willing to evolve and willing to go through the experiences and the challenges and the breakdowns, so that there is evolution that is continuously taking place, so that there are breakthroughs on the other side of that. And I find that the mutual support among fathers is really essential to really encourage each other to keep going through the hard places, to keep that there is light on the other side, because that's something that I find that my life has prepared me in a way to know that there are breakthroughs on the other side of the breakdown.
Yeah.
And for a lot of men who are telling others, "So your life is completely over, just forget about everything, it's going to be, gloom and doom on the other side, and you cannot do all the things that you love to do." And then just to know that, no, that's not true, that there is something beyond this habitual grasping personality. And it's really beautiful and it's really amazing. And so experiencing these deep miracles, and of course there has to be this gestation process in the dark womb, and this dark womb of our own experience, where I have to experience the struggles and the hardships and all of these habitual patterns that are holding me so tightly, and I have to get real with myself around that, so that there is a gestation of the heart essence that can be born from that dark night of the soul. Without the darkness, we wouldn't appreciate the light. But it's good to know that there is light when we are
Yeah.
in the darkness.
Yeah, definitely. So on that point, like, have you had, like you said, during the experience of having your children, you didn't have that much support? Do you have it now with other young fathers or young families? Is that something that you've seen as being common in your circle?
Well, in terms of me not having the support from other men, but then there was support of the meditation experiences and the indigenous traditions and seeing how children are raised. And so, of course, in the indigenous traditions, it's a very different story where it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
And I resonate with that very deeply, because then it becomes so much more meaningful and fulfilling. And so, our community has been there a lot of times through my struggles. And so they're not necessarily parents, but then them being around and sharing the experience, and me being able to be vulnerable and share my processes and my challenges, and then ask them just even for to lend a ear to listen, and to support in minute ways, but then that's been really helpful. And then, of course, all of the different teachers in my life that could remind me about that actually this is a universal process. Of course, the children, they just become really powerful teachers of that. But then it happened. Life itself is a great teacher also.
Yeah.
And we go through that in different ways, but with the child, it's just not possible to avoid it anymore. It's there in my face. The child is showing me all the ways that I cannot fully step up and be unconditional light of the Father Son. And then needing to really see that in order to open up to that archetypal universal quality to be able to channel through me. Because I cannot do it myself. It cannot come from me as this limited personality or this limited being, but I can keep working on being a channel, being this, the indigenous people refer to it as the hollow bone that the spirit can flow through. And for that to really be a channel, I have to let go of a lot of my own preconceptions and hang-ups.
That's good. It's good stuff, man. What would you say to like, what do you think is essential for men that are either in my position or because I want to recognize, like, you've been doing a lot of work for the past 20 years and constantly and consistently showing up with practices and pushing yourself and getting out of your comfort zone. So, like, I'm sure you called in exactly what you needed, and you were asking for it. But a lot of us are not, and haven't necessarily taken those conscious efforts to test themselves or to get into discomfort, or they don't have the community of teachers and mentors that you've cultivated in your life. So what would say a normal guy in Western culture find for support when there isn't a lot out there?
Well, what you've been doing in terms of having the men groups and having this encouragement to be vulnerable with each other and the inspiration to share about not just about the nice things in life, but to really be open and to show up to one's experience. I find that's so meaningful, especially today in our society of fake book likes, I call it, where everyone are pretending that everything is great, and then everyone are miserable and thinking that they are the only ones.
Yeah.
And so that is really essential, I find, this vulnerability, this openness, and to share in the struggle, because that what is allowing us to relate to each other more deeply. Yeah, I feel separate, I feel isolated, I feel miserable, but then if I can recognize that I'm not the only one, then suddenly this sense of separation actually becomes a bridge that unites us.
Yeah.
And suddenly there is this greater heart that is awakened, and we can support each other. And there is this, how to say, nurture, vitality. We tap into the power that is unlimited because we are no longer just grappling with life on our own.
Yeah.
Of course, we all have our own responsibilities, but then knowing that, yeah, I'm not the only one who have my own responsibilities. And then there are people who have gone farther on the path than me that can share that there is something meaningful there, that there is something beautiful there.
Yeah,
And then,
it feels like it comes back to that willingness to open up and find your people and actually lead. That's the leadership I'm talking about, but leading by being the one that asks for help or asks for support and asks the questions that other people aren't asking, because once you do, then that's when the light can come in. But if we're in the darkness, like you said, and we're keeping the door closed because we think we're the only ones that are in it, then the light can't come in.
Yeah, very much so. And that's the experience that I see in many people who just are not used to, like you shared about your father, just completely locked down. And no, I have a certain role to maintain. I have this responsibility. I have to be this certain someone. And then not allowing oneself to transform, to evolve. And then, of course, all this pent up pressure and emotions then create a lot of problems in life.
Yeah, man. I can't see on my screen if there's comments coming in or questions. You wanna open it up to whoever's
Sure.
watching and see if there's
Yeah.
any questions or comments?
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to have some questions or comments, insights, realizations coming through. And let's see. Well, people are commenting that it's nice to have some honesty here. Amazing, nice honesty there. Someone commented, yes, and your father was not God. There would be other things to work out. If your father was not God, there would be other things to work out. How he lost control and how he did not make you feel safe. It is always something. Then my wife, of course, appreciated me actually giving her some credit.
Nice. And that's why we did this whole thing.
I admit I may not always be so vocal about, but I am extremely grateful.
It's got to get this man on the big screen.
And someone said, beautiful contemplation on the roles of parenthood and inspiring each other as parents and as partners. And I feel like that's also essential to talk about, is how we can inspire each other as parents and as partners. And then sometimes in moments of my own breakdowns and thinking that I'm doing a miserable job at being a father, and my wife would actually share something positive, and I would share something positive with her, and would just let me see that, yeah, instead of just being hooked by all of the negativity, to really open up and see that, yeah, there is that spark of motivation, there is that brilliant seed of love. And why do I feel miserable? Is because I love my children so much. And so to really focus on that love rather than let it be clouded by my misery has also been really essential to work through it.
Yeah. Do you use that love as leverage when in times that you're like feeling down or feeling like you're doing a bad job?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm going through a breakdown and I don't know what to do and I'm being overwhelmed and my children are screaming hysterically and I don't know how to handle that as well as my wife does. And then I have to learn how to be with it. Sometimes there is no place to hide. And then, okay, I have to find a motivation to be with it. Yeah, it's extremely overwhelming and challenging. And then I have to focus on the love that I have for my children, the love that I have for my wife or my family. And then that allows me to pull through those experiences. And like I said, often it's the self-imposed limitations that I just got so ingrained. Like, oh, I cannot handle when the scream gets the pitch gets to a certain point. Yeah, I cannot handle it. But actually breathing through it and then gradually seeing, no, that's a self-imposed limitation. I can actually open up to the experience and be with that. So that's been useful to really focus on the motivation and keep coming back to the love that I have for my children, for my family, for life.
Yeah.
Greater, a purpose greater than myself. If I just do it for my own sake, I cannot handle it. Then my old character comes in, right? This capricious adolescent that just wants to throw everything and run away. And then I come back to that greater motivation, a purpose greater than myself, this love that is greater than myself. And then that allows me to really be with what bothers me. So that's a big one.
That is a big one. Yeah, I find that always trying to change what's bothering me has resulted in way more suffering than being like, I don't need to let this bother me. I can just like accept it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm already noticing more of that, even like poor Chanel, but like her whole experience, there's this, she's been asking for things and I'm like, oh, like I need to set a boundary here. I got to say no to these things. And then it's gotten to the point where I'm like, why would I say no to that? She's like this, pregnant and creating this baby. Like, I don't need to get annoyed by a request for something. Like, I can just do it and be happy to do it. So I've noticed a lot of these just little like annoyed sort of weird behavior coming up. Like, no, I don't want to do that energy. And I'm like, that's gotta go before baby's here because there's like poopy diapers and vomit and a million other things that I have no idea that's going to probably annoy me. And if I can't handle showing up in that capacity, then I'm going to be tested.
Yeah, someone asked, how can we as women support our men in fatherhood, knowing that we ladies don't have extra time? That's another part of it, and also something that you mentioned. Yeah, and at the same time, the partnership, there has to be clear communication. And also the willingness of both partners to continue evolving. Because another pattern that I've seen sometimes in other parenthoods and relationships, and also in our own, is this kind of tendency, okay, I can just hide behind certain excuses that have to do with children. And also to keep ourselves accountable. Well, yeah, both me and my wife, it's this kind of monkey mind that wants to create some excuses. Well, you know what? I don't want to work out, or I don't want to, work on myself because I have children now. and then it's a downward spiral from there. So also the support also comes from clear communication and accountability. Yeah, it's understandable. My wife needs to take some space. Sometimes she needs to take a bath and a shower, and I need to hold a screaming baby. And then, yeah, if I just keep saying that, oh, okay, I cannot hold a screaming baby, that's something only my wife does. And I do have a tendency to do that, to say that. But then to keep holding each other also through the evolutionary process.
Yeah.
And make sure that, yeah, it's like, yeah, we have certain responsibilities,
Mhm.
and we can also support each other through that and find ways that we communicate, because it is a family unit.
Man, it comes back to that, like the willingness again to show up in each moment and be open, because what I can see happening in my relationship without the baby or the pregnancy, this like idea that I need to have it figured out. Like I need to know what I'm doing and know how to be a man and know relationships, like this idea that I have to have it personally all figured out is what's blocking me from deeper connection with my partner, because I'm not
Mm-hmm.
allowing her into the process and the process of discovery that has to happen day in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Yeah.
go into relationships and we're like, we know relationships, but we're not going to talk about it. We're just going to pretend that we got it all figured out as it unravels, But what I'm hearing is like how important it is just to keep communication and check in and like be both willing participants in the dance.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge one. So it's great that you're bringing it up, because another part of that process of parenthood is that we may not always see eye to eye with my
Yeah,
wife how to raise our children, or how to engage with their tantrums, and how to go about it. And so the communication is so essential. And
yeah,
then learning how to find the middle way. Okay, my wife sometimes she has a certain view about how to deal with the child, and she did read a lot more books on the subject than I did, I have to admit. And for me, it's a lot more about kind of learning how to work with my own previous experience, and with the indigenous traditions, and with the intuitive connection. And with my wife, sometimes it has to be by the book, and for me, it's not.
hmm
And I have to work with, and of course we alternate sometimes also, but then learning how to find a middle way. And yeah, we definitely had fights on that subject, where it's like, she thinks it has to be that way, and I think it has to be this way. And then, okay, well, let's find the middle ground here,
yeah,
how to engage with the situation. And then she would encourage me to read something, and then I would actually read it through my resistances.
yeah,
And then I would encourage her also to try something that is not based on the book. Or,
Mm,
we hired this specialist, this sleep specialist at a certain point, when it was time to train our child, our older son, to fall asleep by himself when he got older and without the booby in his mouth. And she was, I did not resonate with that specialist, and she was kind of militant to my, and my heart would just break down. And like, she would tell, okay, you have to just put him in his crib, and then step out of the room, and just let him cry. And then there's the cycles that the brain goes through, like every like certain minutes you can go in and check on him. But like, I cannot do it like this by the clock. And yeah, I understand there are cycles, but there has to be also a connection that, yeah, we're not against each other here.
mhm.
And then working alongside. And so I would go into the room, and I would meditate with my child, and I would just sit there. And, of course, if he would like scream a lot, I would say, okay, I cannot help you right now. I want to be with you and support you, but obviously I cannot help you, so I'll step out for a second. And then I would step back in, and he would know I was there. And then just by me sitting there quietly in the room, I would help him to fall asleep. And that worked a lot better in my experience than this militant approach of like just like leaving them. And so we had to find a middle way throughout our processes.
Yeah, I totally agree, man, and I like that. I think that's huge advice for me moving forward because um, I also like bringing different information to the table, and then we're obviously going to have that conversation. But finding the middle ground is is huge because it goes both ways. You can either be
Mm.
passive and just let go of things that when you have an intuitive feeling towards them, or you can be just too direct and bulldoze over someone and disregard what they're bringing to the table. So um, I've got to get going.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that was an amazing conversation. I learned so much. And what stuck out the most for me is the willingness, just letting go of and being allowing myself to sit in the experience and experience it without running away and without having to change it.
Mm.
So I'm
Yeah.
curious, and I'm going to share a lot more moving forward in the next few months about my process and how it's going live, because this is an amazing opportunity for me also to just go through this process consciously and with like mentors such as yourself supporting me and giving me some of those little clues along the way.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think that it's another way that we can really continue this conversation and keep having, series of these conversations. I think can also be helpful for men in our community and for women. My
yeah,
wife says, for the record, she would never let her kids scream that long. I agree. We did not, but there were different techniques. And
yeah.
yeah, it's really this human connection and encouraging each other and opening to each other and having a dialogue, and then seeing that yeah, we can support each other through that vulnerability and openness and this natural spark of love that we all have for our kids, for our partnerships, relationships, and just this child of the universe that is always within us.
Mm-hmm. I
So
love
yeah,
it, man.
thank you so much, Simon, and I look
Thanks,
forward.
brother.
I love our conversations together.
Likewise,
And
man. Always look forward to it. So let's keep them coming. We'll be in touch outside of this, but thank you for everybody else for listening and tuning in. Um, and hopefully we brought some wisdom and information that you
some
enjoyed.
perspectives. Yeah, much love to everyone. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Simon. And we
See you,
look forward
brother.
to seeing you soon. Take care of yourself and each other.
Will do. Thank you. Much love to you and your family, man.
Thank you, you too. Much love to Chanel
Yep.
in your
Oh, I'm
process.
here.
Okay, yeah, definitely share a love with Chanel. I know it's a challenging time right now, but yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful journey.
Yeah, I will. She's doing amazing, like incredible. Like you said, it's inspiring to see her go through this process and just how she's a beaming light through most of it.
Mm.
Anyways, love you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.